This is 101 on spices, my favorite topic. I want to share some very exciting things with you. I'm going to demonstrate some things that I want you to try in the kitchen. We're going to use 3 tools: mortar and pestle. And that's good for certain spices, especially if you want to break them down a little bit roughly. If you want them ground very well, you're going to use coffee grinder, as you see here, my old trusty coffee grinder, many years old. And there's other things that you can, so to speak, grind with a microplane, the best thing in the world. I'm going to walk you through some things that you do, then some things that you don't want to do with certain spices. And there are 2 herbs today, but mostly spices. There's going to be another video on herbs alone. I want to read you something. A lot of the spices that you may find in the stores are in bottles. They are labeled. You buy a product, and I think you overpay. Typically they're ground. If the spices are ground, they're going to be a little flat and maybe possibly old. But there's another issue that you may encounter, and below this video you're going to see a little pink symbol, which actually is FDA label for irradiated foods or irradiated spices or herbs. This is a common practice, so it has to be labeled. So if you buy a spice or an herb that is packaged, look out for that. And the concern is this. I'm going to read you something from Green Med Info. Food irradiation destroyed much of the vitamin content of food, and we're talking about spices and herbs as well, produces a number of toxic byproducts, among others, formaldehyde, benzene, formic acid, and a unique radiolytic products. For example, I have to read this one, this is very strange, 2-alkyl cyclobutanoes that have been demonstrated to be cytotoxic, which means they damage cells, genotoxic, which means they have potential to damage your DNA, and carcinogens, this is a risk of cancer, in test tube and animal studies. So the good thing is that if you go for organic spices and herbs, you avoid this problem. Organic labeling does not allow irradiation. And the interesting thing is that irradiation of food, spices, and herbs is, what I'm reading is 500 million chest x-rays worth of gamma radiation. So if you go for organics, you don't have this concern. And I would encourage you to go for bulk section whenever you can. We are lucky where we live. We have a health food store that has a bulk section for herbs and spices. So you actually save a lot of money. You buy them fresher. You use less if you use bulk because you can also grind them. They're more potent when they are not ground, when they're whole, and that's what I want to show you. So a couple of pointers. For example, you have coriander and cumin, some of my favorites. These go very well, and when you do it manually like this, you're going to have a coarse breakdown of the cell walls. You're going to have a more texture in it. But oftentimes for soup, for example, I will just use my trusty coffee grinder, and that pulverizes the spices or the herbs in a matter of seconds. What you don't want to use a coffee grinder for, I have to warn you, cinnamon. So actually cinnamon I do have in powder, is just much easier. The cinnamon sticks, I tried a couple of times, and it's very hard with a coffee grinder to grind them. I think if you have Vitamix, it's going to be fine. But what I like to do with cinnamon sticks is throw 1 or 2 of them into the cooking. Rice, for example, if you make a nice hot tea, you can throw 1 or 2 sticks into a mug or a teapot, for example. And so you don't even have to break the walls, you can use it intact. And if you have an open house because you're trying to sell your house, I'll give you a tip. You put a pot of water to boil, and you throw 2 or 3 sticks of cinnamon, or if you have powder, you put some powder in it, and it just lightens up the kitchen, and when people come in, they feel like they're home. The smell of the cinnamon just makes people very welcome. All right, a couple of other pointers that I want to tell you. you don't want to use cloves in a coffee grinder. Let me show you what cloves do. Cloves are very, very strong. If you can see here, you can't even see through the plastic here. The clove is so strong that it reacted with it. And if you look at my poor old coffee grinder, you can't see through it either. This has been damaged by me many years ago trying to grind cloves in it. So if you have cloves, I would recommend that you either use cloves whole, which I have somewhere. There you go. Or you buy powder, you know, so I might throw a couple of cloves into, I don't know if you can see it, into whatever I'm cooking. And if I need the powder, like in one of my recipes, I actually use powder, which is, this is what it is. So one of the things I want to tell you about is cayenne pepper. You do get it in powder as well if you have any health problems, heartburn, indigestion. This is the only hot spice that are actually healthy for you and won't damage the lining. It's actually soothing and it will help repair things. One of the things that is a little hard to grind is star anise. So I always have these handy and I just throw them intact. It smells like heaven. You can throw it into the tea. As you're making the tea, you can throw it into a soup. You can throw it into a pot with cooking rice as well. Some of my favorite things to grind, which I highly recommend, is cardamom. Cardamom powder will be a little flat for you. It may not have that wonderful flavor popping unless you buy the seeds. And this is the one thing that I noticed. They're either very expensive in a health food store if you're lucky, or you buy them in powder, or you buy them in pots. The pods are whole and hold the seeds inside. So if you want to throw them into a cooking rice again, you can do that whole. But I have desserts that I use, and so I go to Asian supermarkets or Indian stores and I buy a little baggie of the seeds themselves, and these go very well in the coffee grinder. And that's just divine fresh flavor that pops. Now, one of the best secrets that I'll tell you is the microplane. There it is. And let me find you one of my little tricks. So I made a dandy blend here. This is what it looks like. It's a little bit like coffee replacement, but it's not quite so. It's a roasted dark coffee flavor. It's very good for your liver. So I'll show you here. This is a nutmeg. You probably have nutmeg powder at home, and let me tell you, it's a world of difference. So the nutmeg is solid inside. Here's the nutmeg inside. What you do basically is you grind it right into your drink. And you see I didn't do much. And then, oh, it smells like heaven. That's it. So you can add it to your teas, you can add it to your coffee, you can add it to your desserts. And if I use it in the recipe, I never use powder. This lasts forever. So you're saving a lot of money, you have it fresh. It's just like cardamom, it pops in your mouth, it's so divine. I want to talk a little bit about turmeric because it's so famous. It has so many studies for brain protection, even from Alzheimer, anti-inflammatory research. It's been around for centuries. It's a little bit like clove. When you deal with it, it's just know that it's very reactive. You see, this is all yellow. It stained it. So if you have white countertops, just be aware and put it on something else so you don't stain your countertops, because you won't be able to get rid of it. Sometimes in Asian stores and sometimes in some health food stores, you may be in the same section when you are for ginger, and you may see turmeric roots. It's tiny, little like snail looking, and you can do the same thing you do with the microplane. You can just grate it on the microplane, and the meat inside, when you break it off, is beautifully orange. It's not yellow, it's orange. When you turn it into turmeric powder, it becomes yellow. So that's harder to come by, and I don't have it handy right now. But so that is a little harder to cook with if you have a root, but then again, you have a microplane. Now, the best kept secret is ginger and how to use it. People buy ginger. Let's say you buy this. This is from Trader Joe. This is a lot of ginger. And you know, if you've ever cooked with ginger, that you're going to use a little bit for cooking, and then it's going to be in the fridge. It's going to get very fibrous and dry and really hard to work and even cut through. So what do? Well, I took this straight from the freezer. This is where I keep it. And you can do two things. If you need it for a smoothie, for example, you don't want the skin in your smoothie, then all you do is scrape off. Let me show you how easy it is. See, you have a spoon and you magically just scrape it off. Much easier than a knife, and you're not going to cut yourself. So that's what I would do. But when I use it straight from the freezer into cooking, I grate it to the microplane directly. And the beauty of it is that I don't have to worry about the skin. You see, I used a microplane a few minutes ago, and there's the skin on the side, kind of peeling to the side. I don't have to get rid of it. So I would just grate it directly into, see how it goes like shaving ice, literally. And you shake it in. And this is how I teach my patients to make ginger tea. You don't have to overpay for ginger tea in tea bags. This is a powder. I never buy powder turmeric. It's really not the same. I will put this in this little baggie, and I will put it right into the freezer. And that will last for a long time. You can grate as much as little as you want. Anytime you make a soup, anytime maybe you refry brown rice, you just grate it right directly with a microplane and shake it in. So, bottom line, buy spices organic. Buy them in bulk and buy only what you need. Have nice glass stainless steel containers and get them organic, and have a coffee grinder designated for your herbs and spices, and use it as needed, so you're going to have delicious flavors popping up. It's a world of difference. Enjoy.